All right, welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast. I am your host today, Jerry Garcia, and today we have a very special guest, a buddy of mine, George Salas, going to talk to us about some short-term rentals and kind of why he likes that strategy for wealth building, and we'll just kind of get into it. How you doing, George?
Man, I am blessed, brother, man. I appreciate your invite here, man. Just excited to share some nuggets, chat some business and wealth creation and short-term rentals, man. Let's go.
Awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how'd you get started in all of this?
I'll make it quick. My journey really started when I was 6 years old. I come from a third world country, Peru. I lived in an adobe house. At the age of 6, parents got a divorce. We had to move into grandma's. The house was adobe, so like half of it collapsed because of rain. So we lived in half of a house for 9 years. At 15 years old, we were able to move here to the U.S. and that changed our lives. My mother, my brother, and myself here. And then from there, I really wanted always just to be, I wanted to create my own business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur and just launch something. All the years of discovery, learning for me were just kind of like going from one job, trying this thing to the other. Like I started as a sacker, then I went to retail, then I went to serving as a waiter, as a server, and then I went to bartending in the same vicinity, and then I got into marketing and promotions, which was something that was really awesome for me, right? As a people person, that was perfect for me because I was able to associate, talk to people, build relationships, and from there I went to build on a very, for my age, at 25, 27, I'll call it very successful, right? We're doing anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million a year in revenue. And it was a marketing team, marketing different venues, having contracts with venues. And it was a marketing and promotions and production company. So I did up to 3,000 person events, one-offs, and I was doing weeklies too. In 2017, I invested into a nightclub. A lot of my savings, right? Limited partnership, sort of a partnership into a commercial lease. First time ever investing. I went as a limited partner, as an investor without any say. And then I was also the marketing person because I was the marketer, right? I was the promoter. I was the host. I went as a marketing person. We launched it, $1.3 million venue. And 2 years later, the entire thing shut down. I lost every dollar I invested personally there. And I hit rock bottom, right? For the first time, it was rock bottom twice in like 2 years. Before we opened, and then right after we got shut down. I didn't have any control of it, so my biggest lesson was get into partnership when you understand them, right? So never partner with someone if you don't understand them or the deal. I was very new, naive, and young at business at that age. This is 12, 13 years ago, right? And from there, I started real estate, and my life changed, Jerry. It created a lot of doors were open, right? It created an opportunity for me to go build initial cash flow, which comes before wealth. I just needed to pay the bills. I was doing wholesaling, fix and flipping, and then I got into short-term vacation rentals, learned that. And why am I telling you this? Because a lot of the people probably listening are like, hey, maybe I'm working here right now and I don't know what to do on my next step, right? It's a journey. It takes a while. And from there, I've been doing some awesome things over the last couple of years, like launching a fund. I currently have an amazing network. I get to hang out with people like you, man. Appreciate you for that. We've launched a fund, a private equity fund. We own about $10 million in real estate. And we've run a asset management and property management company that runs pretty much short-term rentals across the nation. So, yeah, man. And super excited to drop some nuggets.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love the vision you had coming from where you come from. You know, you're talking about living in circumstances that most of us could never even dream of. And I love that that spirit was just there when you had these visions of something greater from a young age. I mean, I think that just speaks a lot to your personality. And from what I know of you, that tracks very well. You're dealing a lot with short-term rentals, right? Airbnb type properties. Tell us a little bit about why that's kind of your preferred strategy.
Absolutely. Taking us to the beginning, 2018, when I first started real estate, I needed something that wasn't your typical, like, hey, how am I going to go buy a bunch of long-term rentals? I don't have the money. I don't have the credit. I don't have the cash and the skills. I first started doing wholesaling, and it didn't solve the problem. The problem I had was I needed, $5,000 to $7,000 to live, cash flow to pay the bills. The number one reason was the necessity why I went that route. I didn't realize that short-term rentals could do so much more and where it would lead me first. But I didn't start with short-term rentals. I started with wholesaling, fix and flipping, doing other real estate. It just grew from there up to a point we had 55 properties. Then today we don't have 55, but we have better quality properties, higher end, and they actually have better profit margins, right? At the end of the day, for us, short-term rentals was something that solved the problem initially for me. And now it's grown into something where we can make an impact and help other people doing that by working with our investors, by teaching our clients to do the same, and that sort of thing. So like it grew into something massive. Now it's become my purpose, my mission, just everything I do every day, right?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this. I think one of the greatest points that you're making here is when somebody's trying to get started in investing, the biggest hurdle seems to be like, oh, well, how do I come up with all this money? I can't put 20-25% down on every new property I acquire and expect to be able to acquire enough to replace my income in a short amount of time, right? So tell us, you mentioned about kind of getting involved with some creative financing or ways to kind of get involved without money, or at least as little money as possible out of your own pocket. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Imagine you have $10, $15, $20,000. You're like, oh my God, I want to get into this business. I need to change my life, right? That's at some point I was there. At this point, I'm on another level, but I'm always wanting to change my life. I know that if you're listening out there, you want to change your life for the better. That's just human nature, right? What did I do? Well, the number one skill, I wouldn't even call it a skill, Jerry. I would say that the number one quality that was within me was resourcefulness. Did not have any money. So I went and found a strategy called rental arbitrage at first. Rental arbitrage is when you rent properties and sublease them. That didn't require a whole lot of money, but I didn't own the real estate. Then later, a year to 2 years later, I got into another strategy called creative financing, and more in particular called subject to. When you buy a subject to property, you're essentially buying it subject to its mortgage, because the mortgage stays in the seller's name, and the deed, the title, gets transferred to your name, your company's name, through a series of negotiations, some contracts with the attorneys. But sometimes I have put $0 on some of these properties. My lowest closing ever, like all in, was $3,425. I closed a property a couple years ago, putting down at closing $3,425, and the property was almost ready to go. I spent another $5,000 to $7,000 after that. But creative finance is the game changer. When we buy our properties, we bought 10 last year, 10 different projects. 8 of them were purchased through subject to. 2 of them were regular financing, right? So creative financing is the game changer for any real estate investor, whether they're getting started or if you're out there doing a lot of real estate already and you want to just make your game advance. Creative finance will work. It will change your game, not only because you don't have to put your own cash or credit, right? You don't have to put that 20% down, but also it's faster, it's more efficient, it helps the seller. The better way to do it, right? And you can pick and choose the properties that you want.
That's fantastic, man. I mean, creative financing is really a game changer for most of us because, like I said, I think most people's biggest hurdle is like 25%. If you're buying a property, depending on the market you're in, even if you're talking a $250,000 property, 25% down adds up very quickly, and coming up with that cash over and over again makes it a big barrier to entry for most. So how are you finding these subject to properties that you're able to, you said you got 8 out of your 10 last year were subject to. How are you finding these sellers that are willing to sell subject to?
Fantastic question. Most of the ones I bought last year came through wholesalers. When you're in real estate and you get to attend these networking events and you get to meet people, you're able to really meet some of the wholesalers. And right now, creative finance has been very popularized. As I build a relationship with these wholesalers, most of them already have a good understanding of creative finance. Some have no idea. As a buyer, if you work with a solid wholesaler, someone that gets contracts in from the sellers and sort of sells you the contract for a fee. That's what wholesalers do, right? They don't really buy the real estate. They get a contract, they sell it back to one of us as investors. Wholesalers is number one. Referrals is number 2. And number 3, outreach to agents, right? We did an outreach for, our team did an outreach for one of our properties that now makes $18,000 a month as a short-term rental, which is crazy, but it was straight from the MLS. You can do that. That one wasn't a creative finance, but I completely forgot about that one. That was one of the ones that was not a sub 2. Wholesalers, you can do MLS, outreach, referrals, and there are some softwares out there too in groups where you can find creative finance. So like I say, if you're brand new, the best way to do it is you can go into some of these groups out there called Creative Finance X, Subject to X. There's plenty of them on Facebook, and their wholesalers are going to be there. Specifically, if you go for your city, like Creative Finance Houston,
Sure.
or there are national groups. There's groups also for localized, right? Pretty much 4 ways to find awesome properties. I wouldn't suggest just for somebody that doesn't understand creative finance to go straight into it. They need to do a little study. They need to learn someone to kind of walk them through the deal because it is a little complex.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges? Obviously, there's going to be a mortgage company involved if they're subject to. How does a mortgage company first of all, do you get them involved in the process? Because usually when the mortgage is in somebody's name, that title's in their name also. Any hurdles there? Have you seen any kind of issues with having title transferred while the mortgage stays in the seller's name? Do they remain on title? How do you guys arrange that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple ways. I have always transferred title. We do a very advanced strategy where you transfer the title and it gets recorded, but it goes into a trust. The trust, again, complex, has a beneficiary. The beneficiary is not you or me. It's the actual seller. Here's what happens, okay? Here's the caveat. If the mortgage company says, because they all have a clause, all your notes are going to have a clause that says, if you transfer this title, we may call the note due. If they ever say, hey, why did you transfer this title to this trust or entity or whatever, we give them the paperwork for that trust with that beneficiary attached to it. And it looks like it's actually them transferring the title into their own trust for family purposes, for estate planning purposes. But then we have a trick. This is a nugget. We have an addendum, separate, signed by the seller, that assigns benefits, so the beneficiary terms, like all the shares of the trust. As a beneficiary, it's an assignment of beneficiary interest, which we use, and nobody ever knows, right? That's one way. And if we want to go deeper, we can do what's called a contract for deed. A contract for deed is you have a contract, the deed stays in their name, and then you now have control of the property.
No, those are good. That's a different strategy. So I was very curious how you kind of got past that, because the mortgage companies tend to not like that. So that is a very excellent creative kind of loophole to kind of get around that and make sure that everyone's kind of protected and that you're kind of getting to do what you do. And
yeah, absolutely, man.
I think most of us, when we first start learning about real estate investing, we think in terms of long-term, right? You buy a house, you rent it out to a single renter for X amount per month. Now, obviously, it seems like the short-term rentals, Airbnbs, Verbos, all that seem to generate a lot more monthly income, right? Because you're able to rent out for a higher price per day or per week. What are some of the additional kind of expenses that you see? Like, how do you create that margin and make it larger so that it's worth it as opposed to doing a long-term rental?
Absolutely. When you rent long-term, most long-term properties, long-term rents are going to be, you're going to have anywhere between $300 to $500 of net cash flow. Then that's good for long-term. When it comes to short-term, I make sure I have 3 to 5x my mortgage. 3 to 5x allows me to create that buffer for the 40 to 50% expense ratio, like all of the expenses that are going to be, which could be like cleaning. There are going to be pool maintenance, right? There's going to be outdoor cleaning, indoor cleaning. There's going to be potentially property management fees. When we partner with people, we charge property management fees. And then when you go out there and you don't want to manage yourself, you have to pay property management fees. There's going to be also utilities that in a long-term rental, you don't have to essentially pay for the utilities, but in a short or mid-term rental, you pay for all the utilities, so it's all inclusive. We calculate that at a ratio of 40% to 50% of the revenue. On top of that, you add the mortgage, and for us, if we do 3 to 5x the mortgage, we are at a 20 to 30% profit margin, right? So especially if you're higher end property. We like to focus on not the beginner or starter homes. We like to focus on more median and up, right? So let me give you an example. Okay. I mean, not 2, 3 little bedrooms. We like to focus on 4 to 6 bedrooms, bigger homes, larger, and then we come in and amenitize them, right? We amenitize them. If you're getting started, you would think, let's start with the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom, but those are actually harder, especially if you don't know what you're doing, right? Because there's more 1 bedrooms, because you're competing now with hotels and apartments, and so are 2 bedrooms. So your hardest ones in any location are going to be 1 and 2 bedrooms, right? And then you have 3 bedrooms. Still, we don't go after 3 bedrooms. We have a couple, but our sweet spot falls into the median price and up, a little bit higher, and 4 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms.
So what kind of amenities are you adding to make these attractive? Where's the biggest bang for your buck? Where are you spending that money so that people are attracted to but at the same time you're not overspending and taking a long time to recoup that money?
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal here in any market, every market is different as per amenities, Jerry. Okay, so our goal here in our company is to create and maximize the revenue for each market. So for example, right now we've got an 18 property portfolio in St. Louis. We flew out there, we walked all 18 properties. Some didn't have the room to add, so we focus on properties that have larger backyards so we can add different amenities. In that backyard, per market, each market determines what amenities are needed, right? So for example, one of the properties there had a large space, and it was a duplex, right? And then the duplex needed to be renovated. We were like, okay, what are we gonna do? What about the backyard? We're gonna divide that backyard at one huge playground in one, all family oriented. And the other one is gonna have hot tub, cabana, grill, etc., etc. And the duplex, it's gonna be sort of like a 4 bedroom, 4-2, and then a 4-2 next to each other. And we're gonna rent that as a 4-2, separate, and then together as an 8-4. That's amenities, strategy, all of it together combined. And that's what we do, right, in our business when we work with clients, investors, et cetera, right? So it is about the market, but it's crucial that anybody getting a short-term rental out there, don't just go out there and just, hey, I'm going to buy the short-term rental to try it out. You know, there's very, very much a high level of skill that you need if you want to do really well. Right, so there's a lot of properties out there and a lot of property hosts in the short-term rental market making very little money because they think that, again, right, these short-term rentals can bring a lot more revenue, but don't forget there are thousands of other people that think just like you're thinking right now. So you've got to be strategic, just like in any market, right? If you come out with just an average product, you know, an average company or an average product, you're going to be average out there. You're going to fight your way down. I hope that makes sense. I went a little too far there.
No, that's great. That's great insight. I think one of the things I found interesting, we were out in a conference together in Arizona, and while we were out there, an Airbnb property from one of the local groups there, and talking to the operators, you know, one of the things I found interesting is for when you're kind of redoing your personal home, right? You focus a lot on the kitchen, on the bathrooms, things like that. And they were just saying how it's interesting that it's kind of the opposite when you're purchasing something to renovate it as an Airbnb. You focus more on the bedrooms and the yard, and and people just kind of care about the they don't care about the bathrooms as much. They care about some of the amenities. They were looking at this pretty large property, same thing that you're talking about, 4 to 6 bedroom backyard, had a ton of amenities back there, tons of things to do, little disc golf, mini course, some outdoor bowling, a pool, lots of things to do out there. So definitely a very interesting strategy. I love it. You're talking about the kind of properties that compete with hotels, right? If you've got a group going out to a location for a bachelor party or something, you're able to get them into one place staying together, as opposed to having to get individual hotel rooms and give them some cool amenities as well.
Yeah, it allows the booker, the guest, to gather with his or her friends, just go down there to the lobby of the hotel to hang out or go to restaurants. Like, it makes perfect sense, right? So think of it. This wasn't around 15 years ago. What did you do if you wanted to go on vacation with a group of people? Well, you couldn't rent homes 15, 20 years ago, right? Because there was no Google it up and try to find. But now there is a concentration of marketplace, and that's what Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, these engines serve as a marketplace. It's a genius strategy, in my opinion. But you got to know what you're doing, right?
Well, I think your point is excellent. You're talking about the larger properties, and there's much less competition. Are there certain markets that you like to focus in?
Absolutely. We don't want to go to the markets that are already super oversaturated, right? We want to go to the markets that are doing good, but they could use a boost. Example, St. Louis, right? St. Louis is, it's just a decent real estate market. It's kind of been, struggling to get up as a city. But if you go in there, there are zero awesome top tier short-term rentals. The ones that are like really awesome, like doing 200,000 and up, there's only a handful of them a year, $200,000 a year. They're not even top tier. They're like tier 2. We have 3 properties right now managing, and just the initial increase in amenities and a few things we've done, have shown increases in revenue of 30 to 50% just in a matter of a few weeks. We're like, oh my God, this is pretty crazy. So what do you do if you go into a market like that, right? Well, we had the opportunity to locate a portfolio, and then we were going all in, right? That's a market. So mid-size, drivable, not too big. Like if you tell me, would you go into the Rocky Mountains or Aspen, Colorado, or like Miami? I would say absolutely not, because everybody's thinking the same, right? So why go compete? Even your top tier properties are struggling to fight to make the revenues because the real estate's so expensive, and then you have so much competition. So we look for markets that are undeveloped or mid-sized or mid-developed, like developed in the process of developing, but the real estate prices have not skyrocketed. The short-term rental revenue hasn't skyrocketed because that means competition, but it is growing. We go and look 5 to 10 years back on real estate and short-term rental metrics. Short-term rental metrics only allow us to look back 5 years, but all that, when it comes to our market research, helps us make a decision. And just to give you an example, St. Louis is a mid-sized market. It's very small. There's only like 2,000 short-term rentals there, but there are a lot of people in the metro, like 3 million, 2.5 million, right? So in that whole metro. And there are a lot of travelers, over 6 million visitors per year, right? And what do these travelers stay when they come in? Well, there are not that many awesome short-term rentals, so the ones that are there are mediocre, they're underperforming, and the ones that are really good are killing it, right? So now we come in and look at those top 5 properties and make them better, right? I mean, we create our own. And now you have winners for 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I had a feeling that was going to be the answer, and that's exactly where I was kind of going with that. Is I think people's mind instantly goes to, like you said, Aspen, Colorado. I was thinking Breckenridge, but same exact scenario. People are thinking Daytona Beach, Florida, but no, like you're saying, that's where the competition is. People travel to other markets for whatever reason, right? And even if they live in that city, if you live in St. Louis and you want to have a get-together because you're having a bachelor party or you're having a large birthday party or something, and you want a place where you can all hang out and stay, I think it's just I think it's a great strategy, man. I think it's a pretty awesome niche that you've found there, and a lot of cool ideas. Obviously, like you said, you want somebody to be an expert in it. How can people get involved with an expert like yourself and kind of partner up so that they have somebody behind the scenes who knows what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. So there's active involvement to work with us, and there's passive involvement, obviously, right? So the active involvement, which is probably the best option for your audience, for anybody listening out there in your group, right? Well, they could just visit our website to chat, and we have a team that obviously tries to understand their goals. We can get on a phone call they can get a phone call with them, and essentially we can walk them through what it looks like. And we essentially partner in 2 ways with them actively, right? We do a strategic partnership. It's called a dream partner, and then we essentially teach them how to do that, right? And how we're doing what we're doing. And it could be in any market in the US, right? So, and that's over a period of 4 months on our first type of engagement with them. If somebody's getting started, we work with them for 4 months, and our goal is to get them to launch their first it's what I call a 6-figure property, right? In 4 months. So, but George Salas 360 is my website, and
Awesome.
yeah, if anybody wants to hang out there, but I appreciate you having me, Jerry.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. One thing I like to finish on, I like to ask of a book that you read that was very valuable to you, kind of helped you along the way. What do you got there? What do you got for us?
So, the first book that I read that really gave me this mind-blowing concept of what I could do in real estate was called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. That book changed my life because that book is about real estate mindset. It's a beginner real estate mindset book. And the writer built a $1 billion company, called Keller Williams, right? I love that book. I know everybody tells you first book I read or listened to is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I did that too.
Sure is.
The Millionaire Real Estate Investors, for me, was the visionary book, right? And that's who I am. So I like to recommend it to anybody out there.
No, that's great, man. So yeah, if people want to get in contact with you, you said georgesalas360.com. Any other ways to get in touch with you?
Well, I've got all the social medias in there. So every single one
Perfect.
of them. Yeah, so
Perfect,
absolutely, man.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, man. A lot of great insight, a lot of great nuggets, super valuable content, and we'll definitely have to have you back on later. I'd love to hear some of the good stories and some of the not so good stories about the journey. And thank you for coming on, brother. Really appreciate it. A lot of great insight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Till next time, guys. Thank you.